Good afternoon, everyone. In today's seminar, I'm going to introduce Wordfast. Wordfast has some advantages. The first is it is compatible. Besides having official support, not just with Windows, but also with other operating systems like Mac and Linux. So users may translate without any virtual machine or emulators. Therefore, it is also lighter and cheaper than other CAD tools. Wordfast Pro may not support as many formats as other CAD tools, but its user interface appears to be easier and cleaner. It's more user-friendly to operate with. Also, it has a secure online translation memory and glossary application, which enables real-time collaborative work among different linguists. And this work can be integrated with Wordfast Server, which is another application that Wordfast Pro can operate with. However, despite being useful and practical, its feature may make it more difficult to integrate with other CAD tool or QA tool because users cannot access translation memories and term bases as editable files. Let's start by introducing how to create a project. In Wordfast Pro, every translation begins with a project. Projects can act as containers for all the content for translation, plus associated translation memories and glossaries. So we should create a project before we start translation. In the project list icon in the sidebar, we can click it and open the project list view. Then we click create project. So in the project creation dialog, we have to enter a name for the project and complete the other required fields. They will be marked with a red asterisk, which means this information is necessary, is a must for us to create our project. On this screenshot, I have created two projects. The first one is Wordfast 1, the second is Wordfast 2, and the location of them is displayed here. The source language, target language, the date when they were created, and when it is file last saved, and how much it has been completed. So the default name would be Wordfast with a number. The number will be generated automatically. If we do not choose a name for our project ourselves, this would be the default name. We have to input the name and save this project to some location. Choose the source language, target language. Also, you can find here is the tab for translation memory, glossaries, and block list. Source files can direct us to import the file we want to translate into the project. And then there are some options. First, run analysis report on documents. And then another option is to pre-translate TXLF files. After the information is provided, we can just click create project. And then, as we have mentioned, for translation memory, there are two options. We can create a new translation memory, or we can add from the translation memory list. If we click Add, then select a local, remote, or project-specific translation memory from the drop-down menu as appropriate. If we want to import some translation memory created before, we can click Import. We can also edit some existing translation memory in our project. If we click Create a Project, there would be an analysis of the files, and this information will be displayed. We can see the number of files added, translation memories selected, block list if there is any, and glossaries if we created some, along with any errors that might have occurred during our creation of a project. Once we have created a project, we can open it. We cannot open files for translation without first opening the project in which they are contained. So in the project list view, we select the name of the project from the list. For example, we click this button first, Open Project. Then click Open Project or double click the name of the project to open it. Now we can see that I added one more project. So there are 3 projects on the list now. We also can manage different project files. The view will change to current project view once we open this project. Also, the project's language pair will be shown along with a list of files for translation. For example, this is the file contained in the project. The source language and target language are shown here, a location, and the date of its creation. And we can also add files to our project. Click the project list icon here in the sidebar. We can open the project list view, then select a project from the project list, then click Open Project, and then we can click Add Files from the tab. Then in the Open dialog, browse to select one or more source files if we want to process 2 files. Then click Open. That file will be added to the project. So we can start translating our files in this window. We can directly select a file or click Translate File, or double click the file name to open up this added window. Click inside a target segment, then we can type in our translation. But if we already had a translation memory assigned to the current project, we can leverage some translation from this translation memory, so we don't have to work from scratch. Some of the segments may be pre-translated if we have translation memory assigned to this project. When we convert a file to a translatable format, all complete sentences would be separate segments before we start our translation. They could be divided from other segments by formatting or punctuation. And segments could be sentences or words or numbers, depending on the formatting of the source file. And most important thing is that when we save the translation of some segment, the application will commit its translation to the current translation memory. So it will be saved to the translation memory. If we are satisfied with the translation of the current segment, we can click next segment or just press Alt with down arrow to move forward to the next segment. This action will update our current translation memory, and the segment state will also be changed to translated as we moved to the next target segment. So along our translation, the proportion of segment that we have translated will be shown on the progress bar at the bottom of the edit window. For example, for our current file, the segments that have been translated is 6 out of 9 sentences or 9 segments. And the paragraph of the source file compared to the paragraphs in the target file. And this is a percentage of how much have been translated, with 22 words left to be translated. So we will take a look at this progress bar to find out how much have been translated. If we have finished translating some or all of the segments in our file, we can update the whole translation memory with our new translations. So this action will commit some or all of translate target segments to the translation memory. Look at here, if we press leverage, it will write the current segment to project translation memory, and the cursor will stay in the same segment, or we can press shortcut Alt together with End to commit it manually. For Wordfast, it has a special function to let us switch between stacked view or table view. As we can see from these 2 screenshots, the presentation of the source text and the translated segments are different. On the left side, we can find switch edit layout. We can choose from stacked view to table view. So if we choose one of the view to present the source text and the translation, we can have a different layout. On the left side, it is a table view. We have the source text on the right-hand side, translation on the left-hand side. However, for the second screenshot, we can find the content of the source segments and its translation are stacked together. So it is stacked view. You can choose it according to your own habits or preference. It also has another special function, which is do not write to translation memory. We can select this button from translation tab. It will stop the current segment from being committed to the translation memory. So segments that are flagged as not writable to translation memory will show an icon in the status column. It means that this translation with the segments will not be saved to the current translation memory. Next, let's introduce briefly about how to create a new translation memory. It has a wizard too, just like what we have practiced with Childers last night. We go to setting and we select translation memories, and there is a sign that asks to create a new translation memory. Then the wizard to create a new translation memory will be popped out. We need to give it a name. Source language, target language must be chosen beforehand, and we specify a location to store this new translation memory. In addition, sometimes the segment of our source task may not be ideal. We may need to split or merge existing segments to change the segmentation. If we find that the current segmentation is not that good, we want to modify it. So we select a segment to split or merge in the edit window. And then from the translation tab, we select merge or split. So it will merge or split the current segments according to our operation. So the segments that are merged or split and segment status comment contains either the merge icon or split icon, respectively. If the merge includes an entire paragraph, this is denoted by the merge paragraph icon. You can find here there is also a split icon here because we want to split a whole paragraph, the entire paragraph. The last part is about how to leverage translation memory. Translation memory, the core component in CAD tools, is in essence a database. So it will let the users to reuse previously translated content. So there will be consistent translation. Also, it saves us some effort and the cost will be cheaper. Also, it can facilitate collaboration between different translators, even though they may be distributed worldwide. So projects connected to a translation memory leverage content will be matched against an existing translation memory. For translation memory matches, they can fall into 3 categories. For example, 100% match, fuzzy repetitions, or no match. We can choose or alter or add some fuzzy repetition categories. However, typical fuzzy repetition values will lie between 95% and 75% similarity level. So the segment will highlight, identifies the type of translation memory match. For example, if the color code is green, it indicates a 100% match, while darker green will indicate a context match. For gray, it will indicate there is no translation memory match, and yellow will indicate a fuzzy match. Also, we can make use of the machine translation component. This feature can automatically populate target segments with draft translations whenever we open a file or when there are no translation memory segment matches. So when we open a file, there'll be some draft translation finished by machine translation. In this way, we don't have to work on every segment from scratch. In order to enable this function, we have to go to the machine translation options under preferences, and then go to general preference here. Preference, general preference, and we choose machine translation. It will configure how machine translation engines work while we are translating. Say there are show machine translation results in translation memory when there is no translation memory match. If it is not matched against any record in our translation memory, we can show machine translation results directly. So there are some engines for us to choose. We can enable default Google Translator, Microsoft Translate, Syststream, or WordLingo or any other custom machine translation engine, because different people will choose different machine translation engine. So there are options for us to choose. We have actually practiced some of these machine translation engine in our seminar and the workshop before. You may have some rough ideas about how these different machine translation engine work. They have different, I think, advantages in some area. Also, in the translation tab, we click translation, machine translation in order to submit the source segments for machine translation. And we have to verify that the quality of the translation for the source segments aligns with our requirements, because different machine translation engine will produce different outputs with different quality. And we will have some seminar to introduce how to evaluate the output of machine translation. And as a result, the target segments will be populated with translations from the machine translation service that you have selected. In addition, we also can make use of terminology lists. It will allow us to standardize term usage and to have some control over the use of terms and the variance of terms. Sometimes the parts of speech that are allowed for terms. For example, on this screenshot, I have added 2 terms with its translation to the term base. So this is a glossary editor window. We can add a term to it. We can also search this glossary. Glossary is a specialized list of source terms. The definitions and the preferred translation are also provided. Sometimes alternative phrases for block list terms could also be included. For example, if some word is a taboo, it cannot be used in a translation. So what else can be provided for its translation? It can be provided in this glossary as alternative phrases for some blacklist term. When we select a segment, it will highlight terms from the terminology list in the terminology pane, along with its potential translations. So we can have some suggestion about how to translate these terms. Along our translation, we may need to add terms to the terminology. So if we see different colors of the term, it shows that the type of translation match between the source term and the translation suggested in the terminology list. Simply speaking, green indicates exact match, yellow indicates fuzzy match, red indicates missing exact term match, and purple indicates missing fuzzy term match. So there are different color codes to be used to indicate the terms if they are matched with the terminology list. How to add a term to glossary? In the terminology pane, select a word in the source segment, and you can also at the same time select its translation. And then you can click add a term. Also, you can use shortcuts from a keyword to add a term with its translation to the glossary. And we can also optionally enter content in the description field. Then the new term with its translation will be added. If we want to preview our translation, we can press Get Microsoft Word table here. This will create a bilingual table of the current document that can be reviewed in Word file. We can also select a file with translate content in the TXF editor view. And in the File tab, in the file, click Get MS Word Table. It will generate a Word table for you to preview our translation. And we can also download this file as a Word document. It will contain a table of translate segments. We will practice this operation in tonight's workshop. Okay, this is the end of today's seminar.